Welcome to an IEXIST podcast. Our entire mission can be summed up in one phrase: becoming all that we are. It is our belief that fulfillment doesn't come from changing into things you aren't, but rather from becoming everything that you already are. And ultimately, we're here to press and empower you to lead lives that are full of fulfillment. We've dedicated this specific podcast to the dream, not to having the dream or even talking about the dream, but to living the dream. The reality is that there's a stark difference between having a dream and manifesting one. Here you'll gain insight and wisdom keys directly from some of the water walkers of our generation, dream practitioners, those who have decided to tread paths where there were none, to step out into only what they could see. Come take a peek into the minds of some who, from within, create our world's most magnificent realities. I'm the creator and host, Bryan Pharr, and this is the Living the Dream podcast. Hello, and welcome to the 6th episode of Living the Dream, the podcast. Again, I am your host, Bryan Pharr, and I appreciate you for tuning in today, whether this is your first or your 6th time. I love you all the same, and I welcome you with open arms. Again, I really do appreciate you guys for tuning in today. So I want to jump straight into our subject matter for today. I don't believe this is going to be an extensive episode, but I did just want to tag something onto the initial podcast out of the necessity of the time in which we're living. And of course, the name of this episode is Letting Go to Live Part 2. Now, if you haven't heard Letting Go to Live Part 1, you'll definitely want to go back and listen to that just because it's good material. So again, the reason why I wanted to attack the same subject matter is because we're not only living through a time that is necessitating change, I would dare to say it is demanding change of us. And whether that's hard for you or easy for you, one of the key elements to all change, and I'll say there's two. There's a side in which you are letting go of things past and being willing to reach forward to things to come or to things present. Let me start by sharing two truths. One will be pretty straightforward, and the other will be a truth through a parallel or a metaphor. The first I got from Bishop T.D. Jakes, and I'll always give credit where it's due, but he said this, and I'm paraphrasing it. Anytime life throws you into unstable circumstances, the reason for those unstable circumstances is that your core would be strengthened. When you're thrown off of balance by life, it's so that your core can be strengthened. That's truth one, and that's going to apply to a certain group of people. Truth two is more of a parallel, but it comes through a similarity that's threaded through a series of testimonies that I've heard from people who've been shot. And they all say that when the bullet or bullets took its or their initial impact, that it was not felt by them. That it wasn't until they were either in the position of being about to be operated on, carried to the hospital, or in a recovery mode that the pain actually hit them in a way that they could really feel what had happened to them. So whether that was due to an adrenaline rush in the moment, or whether it was a defense mechanism from the body that didn't allow them to feel anything that exceeded a particular pain threshold, or whether the body was not quick enough in translating what had happened to it, whatever the reason, the testimony of just about everyone I've heard talk about being shot was that, again, upon initial impact, something that dramatic was not even felt by them. And again, it wasn't until later that they were actually able to feel what had happened to them. That second truth in a parallel is for a second group of people. And I kind of want to address you guys first.
Writer, producer, artist, coach, and inspirational motivational speaker, Bryan Pharr takes us on a deep, retrospective, and introspective journey ranging from his childhood until life today that involves the question, will I live a life of significance or one of safety? Filled with experience-gained wisdom and revelatory insights, A New Home dares its readers to ask themselves the hard questions concerning their need to fit in. How far will you go? And will all the efforts you've made be worth it in the end? This perspective-shifting discourse is a must-read, and through its hard-hitting yet relatable, tear-jerking, and even at points comical nature may prove to be more of a life-changing event than just a good Sunday morning read. Get your physical copy or digital copy today at Amazon.com.
So what COVID-19 has done for you in particular is to grant you the opportunity to sit down away from the hustle and bustle of your life, whether you want it to or not, whether you're enjoying it or not. It has allowed you the opportunity to sit down and not only just see the life you've lived by reflecting on your past or really just take in your life from a sight perspective. What it's also allowed you to do is feel the effects of your life thus far. Those decisions that you've made before COVID-19 has enabled you to actually sit down or take a rest for a moment are now being felt by you. What you may have not realized is that the hustle and bustle of your life was acting as a distraction away from the potential pain that some of your decisions probably were even causing you until, again, you had a moment to sit down and reflect and feel the effects of those decisions in the same way that either the adrenaline or the mechanisms within our body's defenses wouldn't allow those shooting victims to feel the actual pain until a later time. And so whether those decisions had to do with relationship choices, schooling choices, career choices, job choices, and a whole slew of situations, in the same way that many of you are oppositely learning to appreciate some of the things you may have taken for granted, others of you are maybe even forming some regret about certain decisions that you've made. And so this pandemic has become a prime, not problem, but opportunity to reset your life. And one of the ways that you're going to have to reset your life is to let go in order to create a new life for yourself. This is your opportunity to start living the dream while you have time away from being distracted from even the pain that some of your choices have been causing you. It's now time to begin to take hold of your future, a new future, one that is not present with the problems and the patterns that were holding you from entangling yourself with the life that was always meant for you. Some of you are quickly finding out that not only did you not just dislike some of the things that you were doing and participating in and participating with, but that you actually hate it. And that's an okay place to be, because I used to say years ago that you have to learn to hate what you settle for so that you can learn to embrace what you were made for. And I know hate is a strong word, but the reason why you have to learn to hate it is because there will always be a temptation to go back to it. And I'll quote the great words of Tim Story here, that a comeback is not a go back. All right. So you cannot go back into the same situation, the same way you've gone about doing things and expect to change because you have this new attitude of, I'm on my comeback. That attitude without the pattern difference, without letting go of, again, the patterns and the people who have adversely affected your journey, won't yield anything but the same fruit from the life you hated in the first place. So this letting go honestly necessitates some rewiring, because it's not just patterns, places, and people that are having to be let go, but it's really certain ideas around how you've lived your life for a long time. And if I get into any of that, this is going to be too long of a podcast. I promise I will provide more information, but Please do not ignore any signaling, any signification that you may be getting through pain or regret or anything of the sort that may be telling you at this moment that it's time for a change in your own life. Again, this is only for a specific group of people, but if it's for you, do not ignore that pain that might have taken a while for you to feel. And it took sitting down, and it took reflecting, and it took really being away from certain situations. For you, make sure you're not ignoring that and be willing to do the work that's necessary to come out of this, not just with an attitude of, I'm going to make a comeback and then just go back to what everything was, expecting a different result, but rather understanding that you have to embrace a new you altogether and let go of, again, certain patterns, people, principles, whatever level it takes in order to get yourself into a new direction, to a new place. And please don't hear me saying that you need to hate people or a person. You don't have to hate the person, but you have to give yourself permission to get out of the situation. All right. So you don't have to hate a person to hate the situation that either you've or they've put you in. All right. So just be willing to do the work to get yourself out while you have this opportunity. Again, if this is for you. Now for the second group of people, which I address your truth first in the beginning. Let me just say this really quickly. For so many of you, letting go and or change in general is proving to be something that either you're completely unwilling to do, and I don't even know if I'm really speaking to that group in particular, but for others of you, you know that it is unavoidable, but it's still proving to be extremely hard. And the reason being is because so much of your actual identity has been wrapped up in the world as you knew it. And so now going back to the truth I shared at the beginning, anytime life creates such an unsettling that it throws you off balance or takes away your sense of security in terms of your stability all the way around, herein lies an opportunity for your core to be strengthened. Sometimes it's not hard for many of us to change or embrace the idea of letting certain things go and changing ultimately because we may have been doing a lot of things the same way you have in terms of living for others, people pleasing, only doing what we thought others would think was cool or living for the sake of other people's perception of us. But we weren't actually successful at it. But what happens a lot of the times when you lived that way and it worked, it has worked for you. And so your core strength, which means your true and personal identity that would need to have been built up from the inside out rather than through the praise of people, which is again trying to get success from the outside in by being liked, by controlling perception, by making people see you in a certain light, only sharing things that you thought that they would like you for. Sometimes when that works for you, it's harder to let go, even though times like now are demanding a change from you because, again, that core was not built before now. And now when life is demanding a change and a regrouping and a rewiring and a redirecting, the fortitude, the strength, the internal principle that is needed is not quite present. And so it becomes a much harder thing. And I'm actually praying for you and really here to encourage you to let go of what was there. Because if you would dare embrace an alternate reality that was actually meant for you, that involves your true identity and not just the perception that was built in order to impress, that may not work through a time like this, if you would dare let it go, then what you would embrace by, again, assuming a much more real reality would be 9, 10 times, 1,000 times, I believe, better than what you had before with the perception game or anything else. And so I'm saying this really quickly. And again, this is only for a certain group of people. And if you don't know what I'm saying, it's not for you. But now is the time. Now is the time, no matter who you are, to make the necessary changes. These times are requiring change of us. Again, I said it earlier that these times are not just necessitating change, but they're demanding change. I would even go as far as to say it feels like to me a change or die situation, not to scare anyone. That's the seriousness of it to me. I want to say this too to the second group that I'm addressing, again, that I gave the first principle or truth to up front, that there will always be a distinct difference between a true blessing and a falsified one, a true success and a falsified success, or the image of success without the real internals of it. And that distinction will always be that a true blessing, a true success will not have any latent grief, regret, sorrow tied into it. So now's the time, whoever you are, to take a new lease on life, to change your patterns from those that form regret to those that bring reward, to go about life in a different way, a new way, to begin to let go, learn to hate the old patterns that have created a life that you've only settled for, to embrace a life that you were made for. I just wanted to allow the opportunity for your perspective to be reframed. I know some of you are going to hate the process nonetheless and go through it unwillingly, but I know others of you are going to take others' perspectives that are only adding value during this time so that you can make your life what it was always intended to be. And so, again, I do pray that your way is made prosperous. And until next time.